This cemetery is known as the final resting place of many famous Hollywood figures. Numerous visitors and staff have reported paranormal experiences and sightings. Here I go, an old storyteller, drawing for you a hair-raising tale set in the famous Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Hold on tight because this story will pull you into a world of shadows and long-buried secrets. My name is Evelyn, and at 75, I thought I had seen it all in this life. I worked as a caretaker at Hollywood Forever Cemetery for over 3 decades, tending to the graves of stars and unknowns. But nothing prepared me for what happened that sweltering summer in Los Angeles. It all began on a muggy August night. The heavy air clung to my skin as I made my routine night rounds. The city lights flickered in the distance, a constant reminder of the world of the living beyond the cemetery walls. But inside, among the tombstones and statues, a sepulchral silence reigned. I walked the familiar paths, my flashlight illuminating the shadows between the graves. The scent of freshly cut grass mingled with the sweet aroma of flowers left by visitors. Everything seemed normal until I noticed something strange near Reflection Lake. A thin, whitish mist hovered over the water, something I had never seen before. As I approached, I felt a chill run down my spine. The temperature dropped suddenly, and my breath formed clouds in the air. In August. In Los Angeles. I pointed my flashlight at the lake, and the beam of light revealed something that made my blood run cold. For a moment, I saw faces reflected on the water's surface. Dozens of them, pale and ethereal, staring at me with empty eyes. I blinked, and they were gone. But the cold remained. I hurried back to the administration office, trying to convince myself it was just a trick of the light, an illusion caused by fatigue. But deep down, I knew something had changed that night. The cemetery, my home for so many years, suddenly seemed like a strange and hostile place. In the following weeks, strange things started happening more frequently. Objects moved on their own. Fresh flowers wilted within hours. And the sounds, oh the sounds. Whispers and wails echoed through the empty corridors at night, even when I was sure I was alone. My colleagues noticed the changes too. The young gardener, Miguel, refused to work after sunset. He swore that the statues moved when no one was looking. The receptionist, Sarah, quit after claiming she saw her own reflection age decades in seconds in the bathroom mirror. I tried to stay calm and rationalize everything. After all, cemeteries are places full of fertile imagination, right? But then the nightmares began. Every night I dreamed of the same scene. I stood before an old, moss-covered grave. The tombstone was cracked, and I couldn't read the name. But I knew with an inexplicable certainty that this grave should not be there. A voice whispered in my ear, "Find the truth. Free us." I woke up sweaty, my heart racing, with the feeling that someone or something had been in my room. The smell of damp earth and wilted flowers lingered in the air for hours. That's when I decided to investigate. I spent days rummaging through the cemetery's old archives, looking for any clue about that mysterious grave. In my spare time, I walked every inch of the grounds, comparing the tombstones with old maps. And then, on a rainy afternoon, I found it. Hidden behind an imposing mausoleum, partially covered by vines, was the grave from my nightmares. The inscription was almost illegible, but I managed to decipher a name: Elizabeth Harlow, 1902 to 1927. I returned to the archives with a mission. Who was Elizabeth Harlow? Why was her grave calling to me in dreams? The answers I found opened a Pandora's box that should have remained closed. Elizabeth was a promising actress from the silent film era. Beautiful, talented, and ambitious, she was about to land her big role when she mysteriously disappeared. The newspapers of the time speculated about her fleeing, being kidnapped, even committing suicide. But the truth, buried in archived police reports, was much more sinister. Elizabeth had discovered a terrible secret involving some of Hollywood's most powerful men. Producers, directors, stars, all part of an obscure cult that practiced macabre rituals in the studio basements. Rituals that involved human sacrifices in exchange for fame and fortune. When she threatened to expose everything, Elizabeth was silenced. Her body was found weeks later, mutilated and abandoned on the city outskirts. The case was hushed up, her death declared an accident, and her body buried discreetly in the newly opened Hollywood cemetery. But Elizabeth's spirit did not rest. And now, almost a century later, she was determined to tell her story. As I delved deeper into Elizabeth's story, even stranger things began happening in the cemetery. The lights flickered uncontrollably. The ground sometimes trembled without explanation. And visitors started reporting frightening encounters, shadows in the dark, icy touches on their shoulders, voices begging for help. One night, while I was alone in the office reviewing the archives, all the lights suddenly went out. In total darkness, I felt a presence behind me. The air turned icy, and a whisper echoed in my ear, "Help me, Evelyn. Only you can tell the truth." When the lights came back on seconds later, I was alone again. But in front of me, where there had only been old papers before, now lay a silver locket. I recognized it immediately from the photos in the archives. It was the locket Elizabeth wore the day she disappeared. At that moment, I understood there was no turning back. I was involved in something bigger than I could imagine. Elizabeth had chosen me to be her voice, to finally tell her story and expose the horrors she witnessed. In the following days, I plunged headfirst into the investigation. Using the locket as a sort of connection to Elizabeth, I began having visions of the past. Flashes of lavish parties that turned into dark rituals. Famous faces distorted into demonic masks. And always, at the center of it all, Elizabeth, first fascinated, then horrified, and finally determined to escape. But the more I discovered, the more dangerous the situation became. I started noticing strange cars parked in front of my house. Mysterious calls in the middle of the night. And in the cemetery, some graves began to be vandalized, always those of people I discovered were somehow connected to Elizabeth's story. I realized I was not only dealing with ghosts but something much more dangerous, living people determined to keep secrets buried. The cult Elizabeth discovered still existed, passed down through Hollywood generations as a dark legacy. One night, while working late in the office, I heard a noise outside. Looking out the window, I saw a group of hooded figures moving among the graves, carrying torches. My heart raced as I realized they were heading for Elizabeth's grave. Without thinking twice, I grabbed the locket and ran outside. I hid behind a large angel statue and watched in horror as the group formed a circle around Elizabeth's grave. They began chanting in a language I did not recognize. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble. A strange greenish light emanated from the grave. I watched, a mix of fascination and terror, as an ethereal form emerged from the earth, Elizabeth's spirit summoned against her will. That's when I understood, they were trying to trap Elizabeth again, to silence her once and for all. And I was the only one who could stop them. Without thinking about the consequences, I stepped out of my hiding place. I held the locket high and shouted Elizabeth's name. The effect was immediate and shocking. A wave of energy exploded from the locket, throwing the cultists back. Elizabeth's spirit solidified, her eyes meeting mine. In that moment of connection, decades of secrets and horrors passed between us. I saw it all, the rituals, the sacrifices, the pacts with forces beyond human comprehension. And I knew what had to be done. With Elizabeth by my side, we faced the cult. It was a battle that transcended the physical and spiritual. Lightning cut the sky, the wind howled among the tombs. The restless dead of Hollywood forever rose to help us, centuries of secrets and lies finally coming to light. When the sun rose, it was over. The cult members were defeated, some dead, others fled. But the price of victory was high. The cemetery was in ruins, graves opened, statues broken. And I would never be the same. Elizabeth, finally at peace, disappeared with the first ray of sun. But before she left, she gave me one last message: the truth is free now, Evelyn. But remember, some secrets have long teeth. Take care. In the months that followed, I worked tirelessly to expose the truth. I wrote articles, gave interviews, faced threats, and attempts to discredit my story. Slowly, the veil of lies that covered Hollywood for decades began to tear. Today, years after that fateful night, I still live near Hollywood forever. The cemetery has been restored, but it has never been the same. There is a different energy in the air, as if the dead can finally rest in peace. Sometimes, on full moon nights, I still see shadows dancing among the tombs. And whenever I pass by Elizabeth's mausoleum, I feel a gentle touch on my shoulder, a silent reminder that some secrets are too heavy to carry alone. So here I am, an old storyteller sharing a tale that many would call fantasy. But I know the truth. And now you do too. Remember, the next time you visit an old cemetery, pay attention to the whispers in the wind. You never know what secrets the dead might want to share.